Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 107, a small Peugeot, on Monday, the 15th of May, 2017. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we will be talking about Dieselgate follow-up, don't buy a Duster in India, Formula E result, and Mazda opens a shrine in Germany. So
no small Peugeots then?
No small Peugeots. No, I'm going to get straight into the Dieselgate follow-up because this will be very brief, and it seems to be becoming more separated between the news that we get on this. But basically, the judge has said he is going to approve the 3-litre diesel agreement anytime now. So we're just waiting for that, where there's going to money and fixing things and stuff and all the rest of it. So basically, it's happening. He's going to sign it off, and then that's pretty much the end of it, I think. And
that means there's an end in sight, definitely.
Sorry, end of the this round of legal proceedings.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the US sorted-ish, isn't it?
Is there not class action still going on? Possibly,
yeah, but the actual main chunk of it all.
Yeah, the big government and state side of things, that sort of stuff, I think this is the rounding off because they've reached agreements in the past with most of the states, I think. I think there's only the criminal stuff now of which they've pleaded guilty to.
Mm-hmm. So that should
on behalf of the people who've been named, which was very nice of the company.
Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to split company and people at this point. And really, I think it's better for Volkswagen to just cough up and make it all shut up, as opposed to.
But of course, the other thing that's happened since we were last on is they had their annual general meeting, and if you remember back at the start when we were young, Alan.
I know, when we didn't have grey hair.
When the world was lovely and all wonderful, and particulate filters were not an issue, apparently. Volkswagen released the information, said, look, we've been naughty, but we are now, from now on, we will no longer be this company that hides truths and facts and things like that. We will be open and honest to gain back the trust, because that's what we've lost, is we've lost the trust of our customers, and that is deeply hurtful to us because we have destroyed that trust. So we are going to bring in a law firm that is going to do a report, and we will publish that report to show how open and honest and trustworthy we are, except for
what did they do with
going to do it? Yeah. They're not going to now. They've decided, no, we won't print it for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, reasons. And one of the reasons I saw mentioned, and I don't know if this was a direct quote, but was basically they're fearful of more legal issues if they printed their own internal investigation, which if I was a German prosecutor, I would then 20 minutes later be knocking on the door going, hi, let's have that report. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure that this whole thing went the way that Volkswagen expected it to go right at the start.
How do you mean? Anyway, you mean that some people honestly did think it was a couple of rogue engineers and didn't actually involve lots of major management that it appears to be involving?
Well, let's face it, you wouldn't have made that kind of promises at the start if you knew that.
But they just look horrific for that turnaround. It's just appalling.
Yeah. It's fun. Anyway, we've talked far more about that.
Yes, that was only meant to say the 3-litre diesel.
That was what we agreed before we started. We'll just talk it. We'll just mention 3 diesel, and then we'll move on. There won't be loads and loads of Dieselgate talk tonight. But yeah. So shall we move on to the new Dieselgate?
Yes.
Dieselgate 2, Waymo's Revenge.
Yes.
Yeah, Waymo.
Only the robots see you coming.
Waymo and Uber. This has been going on and on and on. In fact, it has evolved this morning. So basically, what's going to happen, and I've used the word basically again, and every week I listen to this back and say, don't use basically, Alan. Essentially, what's happened is that there has been a court order today. It was reported up until yesterday that that Alphabet, that Waymo were going to be, all these names for Google, isn't it confusing? That the Waymo were going to be seeking a court order and an injunction against Uber to stop them, basically to stop them developing any autonomous vehicle, any more autonomous vehicle technology, or reusing.
Because they were using their LiDAR stuff, and
they were using LiDAR stuff that may or may not have been related. That was the claim, absolutely. So,
but the judge had said the judge had previously said last week, no, there isn't enough proof to say that they can't continue to develop their own LiDAR and autonomous systems and all that sort of stuff, and keep researching that and developing it. There's not enough evidence to say that that's exactly the same. It's the smoking gun we were talking about last week. I was
about to say there is no smoking gun.
So they can continue to do that. However, today, what's been said is
in the court order, it says the bottom line is the evidence indicates that Uber hired Lewandowski even though it knew or should have known that he possessed over 14,000 confidential Waymo files likely containing Waymo's intellectual property. That at least some information from those files, if not the files themselves, has seeped into Uber's own LiDAR development efforts. Pardon me, scrolling too quickly. What the partial injunction that's come out says is that says that Uber has to account for any and all conversations that Lewandowski had with any other Uber company employee related to any of the Alphabet files or claims that, or basically anything that Alphabet, that is Google, claims that he stole. They are allowed to keep on working on driverless cars. I mean, and it's been acknowledged that a certain amount of the stuff and the work that's going on is non-proprietary. There is stuff that people just know for professional reasons that allow you to develop a LiDAR system. Any part of that which may or may not, which can in any way be related back to these 14,000 files, though they're not allowed to use or do. So it's not. So what's the outcome of all that waffle? Essentially, Uber has removed, has to formalize Lewandowski's already voluntary offer to set himself back from any and all work on LiDARs up until the injunction hearing, at least. It does mean, however, that they can keep on developing and testing the LiDAR system that they have, provided, of course, that it's not based directly on Alphabet Waymos, which they're claiming it isn't. So they'll probably keep on testing it, because if they stopped, then they would be in real trouble.
But Waymo's still allowed to look at all their development stuff. Yes. While they're developing it, they have to pass on what they're doing to Waymo to review.
Yeah, to make sure that it isn't exactly the same as what Waymo's doing.
Yeah.
So it's a bit messy.
Which we knew it was going to be.
We knew it was going to be, but it is moving on, and certainly the judge so far, whose name I can't see in this, is sitting in a rather tricky position. But managing to try and he's trying not to just say no, don't do it, and let stuff continue and let stuff flow. I think which is interesting and useful. So
yep.
There we go with that. New news.
Yes.
And crash tests, Andrew.
Yes. Mentioned it in the beginning. Do not buy a Renault Duster in India. Their base spec car was granted 0 stars by Global NCAP. Now, I don't know. This is something that we do mention each time, how the star rating is compared to older cars and that sort of thing, but no stars at all. I don't care what benchmark you're using is not good.
Well, a lot of this is to do with the fact that things that we take for granted here in Europe and in the US, for listeners in the US and Canada, like airbags, are missing. And one of the reasons that we have pyrotechnics aimed at our face when we're driving our cars is that, in actual fact, it is safer than not having the pyrotechnics aimed at our face, because it stops our whole body, rocking straight forward and smashing into the steering wheel. It does actually give some sort of cushion there. If you're missing that, then obviously you're going to get, and you don't have seatbelt pretensions, and you don't have all these other things that go along and that cost money in a highly competitive market where they're not obligatory, then your car's not going to be as safe. It's as simple as that. If you don't have those features fitted, then it's not going to be as safe. With the airbags, the Indian spec, the higher specs, do get 3 stars, which still isn't awesome, compared to South American spec cars, which got 4 stars, but that was because they had a bigger airbag in the steering wheel.
Yep.
Sorry, I think I've just kept on talking and covered all of that for you.
No, it's wonderful, and I didn't even move my lips. But it goes to show that third world countries are not treated equally, and we know why, from a business point of view, that's done is because of money, and they cannot charge the same amounts that they charge, say, over here. That those prices won't be paid. The people will accept a lower price car for the risks. But it's, we all know that NCAP is a company that is pushing their services as a safety standard and charging people for that. However, people should be entitled to a minimum standard where getting in a car should not be, if they're in an accident, hang on, am I actually going to get out of this or not? And 0 stars is, like I said earlier, don't care what your benchmark is, that's poor. That is very, very poor. And I struggle to see how that will ever improve unless a manufacturer starts saying, no, we will shout safety.
Yeah.
And that will be our selling card, is safety, considering how many, you think of India, how many accidents are on the roads every year, how many people die on the roads every year is just horrific.
Having been to India, it's completely and totally believable.
Yep.
Yeah. Global NCAP have set out a plan to eradicate 0-star cars from all markets by 2020, and they are campaigning with the automakers that there is a basic crash structure and at least 1 airbag in any new cars.
And they're shouting with the UN on this, aren't they?
Yeah. This is supported. This isn't. This is widely supported.
Yeah.
Across the world,
right,
which is good.
It is very good. More safety is good. I think there we go. I like to underplay these things.
More good a safetier is, yes.
Yes. Safer is betterer.
Yes. You're going to say that that's about halfway through, aren't you?
I'm going to say that we're approaching that area.
We are in about that area. It's very short tonight. Show tonight, folks. It is a Monday in the middle of May. We normally record on a Tuesday night, but we've had to record on Monday. There's less news on a Monday, and also
and there's less news in May.
And there's less news in May because most of Europe are making bridges with all the bank holidays to get longer holidays for less. So of course nobody's releasing stuff because they're all on holiday. So it makes it hilarious fun for those of us with a weekly news show. That notwithstanding, now is the point where I grovel for some of your money, basically, to put it to not to put too fine a point on it. We started a Patreon to try and support us with some of the stuff that we are trying to do with the Motoring Podcast over the next, as long as we can, next 100 episodes, let's say, to support and to be able to do things better, just like safer is better. As Andrew said,
it's our new watchword, better.
It is our new word, better. Yeah, it's bigly. So we started a Patreon. Patreon is a service that allows you, listeners, supporters, wonderful people, to donate creators like ourselves a certain amount per month. In return for that, we give you, the supporters, a little bit more than normal people get. So starting right from the most basic $1 a month, at $1 a month, we will email you a notification that a new show is out. Okay, so that's the most basic. You give us $1 a month, we'll do that. That's great. It's $12 a year. That's what? That's like a tenner. That's basically 2 posh coffees a year. That's all. Imagine if it was 2 posh coffees a month. That was all you'd need to get us. And you could donate that instead, but any amount in between and at various levels on the way through, then you can donate that much every month. So buy us a coffee, buy us a pint, buy us whatever you would like to give, what you feel that the Motoring Podcast is worth. And no, we will not be paying you to listen to it. We feel it's worth a little bit more than that. If you need to know more, if you'd like to see what the different levels are, what it is that we're offering, and what our targets are over the next goodness knows how long, because I've tried to put in a whole load of those so that you can see what we'll be trying to work towards when we reach various levels. Then you can do so at patreon.com/motoringpodcast. I got that the wrong way around last week, so my apologies. It's patreon.com/motoringpodcast, or quite simply go to motoringpodcast.com and click on the red button at the top right of the page. Any help and support you can give us would be greatly appreciated. Somebody did point out that there is a slight disparity in the numbers that show on the site right at the moment. The reason is that the total number is the total amount that we receive of a month. So that's after Patreon have taken their small share off their skim for providing the service. So that's why if you're putting on, you go, well, it's that much, and then I've added this much, and those numbers don't add up. That's why. It's because the Patreon skim is off. The number you see is the number that we receive. That long waffle, I think, pretty much covers that. Of course, if you're not in a position to donate money, that's just great. That's just great. If you could please, on the podcast playing platform of your choice, leave a rating and review, then that would be greatly appreciated. And if you've already left a rating and review for Motoring Podcast, then for the Motoring Podcast news show, then please leave one for Rear View, which is the sister show, the one that talks to interesting people in the motoring world. If you haven't listened to it, then please give it a listen. Last week, James Ruppert of Free Car Mag and Bangonomics fame was on with Andrew, and it was absolutely fantastic. So please take a little listen to that. That's Rear View. If you search for Rear View on iTunes or your podcast player, then that should come up at the very top of the list. And that's the advertising spot for this week, Andrew.
It is. You did well there. Well done.
But I will need to actually change what's written because it's not any of what I've just said.
No. So you're going to have to transcribe all that now.
I know. At some point, I keep meaning to, in between shows, and it's always way at the bottom of my list. And one of the reasons it's way at the bottom of my list is because I was actually out and about. I was fitting new seats into the Yaris, actually.
Yes, I saw the picture.
Yes, and that meant that I was actually ended up doing that over the Monaco Formula E race last week. But it was another cracker. I've seen some of the highlights, and just the same close racing. I know that some people are still skeptical of Formula E, but the more Formula E races I see, and the more the highlights catch up on, and I see the qualifying and all these other things, then just the better it is. It was great to see it back in Monte Carlo in Monte Carlo and Monaco for the second time. It skipped a year last year because they do it the same years as the Classic Grand Prix.
The same years or the alternate?
I think it's the same years because it's already all set up for it.
Okay.
If I remember rightly, because it means that they can do the historic Grand Prix, and then they can do Formula E, and then they can do, Formula One. Right. I think it's that way around. You've just made me question that now, though. I'm sure that's what I was told.
I'm here to bring doubt and confusion to you.
Exactly. So they run the short circuit in Monaco, so it's a little bit different from the Formula One. But again, another excitement-filled race, ending in that close finishes that I think that we're starting to really associate with Formula E. Lucas Di Grassi chasing Sebastian Buemi right up until the last second, right through swimming pool, right through Rescas at the very end of the circuit there. But overall, Di Grassi had to settle for second, sadly. The chaps from Mahindra Racing coming in third. I forget exactly who it was.
Heinfeld.
So Heinfeld, pardon me. Yes, there we go.
I was watching it via Twitter from an A&E near me.
Yes, I was keeping an eye on it on Twitter in between sort of being rude about other people's abilities to wield spanners and stuff. But yeah, so it went Sebastian Buemi was first. 0.32 of a second behind him was Lucas Di Grassi, and a good 10 seconds.
13.67.
Yeah, good 13 seconds behind was Nick Heidfeld from Mahindra. Nelson Piquet Jr., Mario Engel, Felix Rosenqvist, Daniel Abt, Esteban Gutierrez, and Nicolas Prost and Mitch Evans for Jaguar, rounding out the top 10 there. A few do not finishes. Sam Bird, sadly, British driver for DS Virgin,
didn't he hit the wall?
Yes, as did Jose Maria Lopez, also from DS Virgin. So. Yeah, but they're all warming up because next weekend, Formula E moves to Paris.
Yes,
and it's 2 days in Paris this year, I believe. Right outside Invalides, just across the water from the Champs-Élysées and Place de la Concorde and all these places, and it should be fantastic. That road circuit that loops around. Invalides and just has fantastic views of so many of the of those.
It's got so many iconic background, isn't it?
Iconic background, yeah. So many icons. That's the word I was looking for. So many of those Central Parisian icons. It's so great whenever cities like Paris are able to host these events in the middle. It's such a shame that Berlin this year's back out. Isn't being held in and around Alexanderplatz like it was last year. But on that note, the fact that there's been a change to the legislation here in the UK, which does actually start to allow racing to be held on closed public roads, that really holds out some hope.
That three people from Battersea and a dog won't stop a race.
Yeah, that it can take place elsewhere in London, because that would be so good.
Ring Road. That's what they need to do. It is the road of death. It is
the road of death. I mean, it's the road where you're always changing lanes. It's terrible. But yeah, it's if it could be in. But they're aiming very much more for capital cities or pretty close thereof. I mean, Long Beach and Miami don't really count for that. But yeah, I really want it back in London. Big time. You could do such a good bit in sort of Green Park and down that bit. There's nobody there at the weekend, so it'll be good.
It's got a bridge as well. Get a bridge involved. Make it really exciting, that would. Look at the drone footage then.
Yeah. You couldn't get them as far as Parliament Square. I don't think that would happen right at the moment. But yeah, just some of that bit down around Green Park, Buckingham Palace, the Mall, that sort of area. There's loads of roads that could make you could. I won't be the first person to have thought of it to have made a circuit there.
No.
Anyway,
talking of motorsport though, it's WRC Wheels into Portugal this weekend as well.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for highlights, possibly lowlights and mid-lights for that. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Chris Meek has a better week.
Yes, it will be the week of Meek.
Yes, that would be good. That would be good. But enough of motorsport now.
Mm-hmm.
Mazda, as I mentioned again in the opening, or at the opening, have opened themselves a shrine in Germany. It's their first museum outside of Japan, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at some of the pictures, they've got some crackers there. I mean, it does look a gorgeous building.
It's quite cool, isn't it? Because it's not anywhere you'd expect it to be. It's in Augsburg. I should have looked up where Augsburg is, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I mean, it's brilliant that there's one in Europe. I mean, that's fantastic. But quite why Germany for Mazda, I don't know. I suppose it's because of their general car heritage and engineering and stuff. Because
I have a funny feeling.
Clearly, an engineering based company, isn't it?
Yeah, you do see quite a lot of. I don't know. I think just Mazda Germany seemed really keen on the idea. Is what it looks like to me.
Okay.
That's how that sounds silly, but that's how it comes across. But they've got a
ton of K cars as well, haven't they? As well as the typical ones you'd expect. They've got lots of stuff that's not European spec.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. There's lots of JDM stuff, lots of models that weren't necessarily sold here. Well, that just weren't sold here, to be perfectly honest. So I think that's pretty cool. There is loads, basically everything from MX-5s and RX-8s right the way down into right the way up to there's.
I can see a 323 with pop-up headlights.
The 323, that's a BA model.
And an older 323, the more.
Yeah, I forget which they are.
But yeah,
I've got a BJ as well.
Just obviously RX-7s, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
just wonderful.
RX-7s, RX-8s. Where is it? It is Augsburg. Is between pretty much slightly closer to Munich than it is to Stuttgart in Germany there. So it's kind of in the middle. It's not too far south. So yes, so that's about where it is. So if you were doing a tour of Germany with car type stuff, and you were heading down into southern Germany, and Munich and things, then it would be on your route,
doesn't it? That sounds like an idea. Do the tour of the museums in Germany.
Yeah,
the official museums.
I've done some of them. The official museums, they're much better than they were when I did it. Well, I don't know. There was a certain charm to the Porsche Museum when it could only hold 10 cars. And now it is this massive edifice displaying everything. But there's probably less chance of the curators deciding on a whim to just fire up a Carrera GT in its wondrous V10 in a showroom area smaller than most Porsche garages here in the UK. Yeah, that's one of my outstanding memories of that particular trip. And at the time, the Mercedes Museum was again much smaller, but they actually had to take you on a coach inside the factory at Stuttgart. So now it's outside. It was still being built at the time, and now and then it went in. So you can still see there were loads of prototypes that were all completely camoed up or parked, and anyone who's going to the museum could see them on the way. But you weren't allowed out of the museum. It was like you go in and then you wait for a coach to take you back out again. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm off on another tangent. It's one of those weeks when there's less news. I feel free to do it.
Well, this is something you found this week, which sort of ties into one of our earlier.
Well, it does. When we're talking about autonomous vehicles, then the three and self-driving-y stuff. Then the three brands and the three marks that keep appearing in the news are Google and Waymo, Uber, as we mentioned earlier on, and of course Tesla. There are actually hundreds of organizations working on one aspect or another of autonomous vehicles. And what Wired have done is they've tried to gather all the logos together of all these brands and try and group them by what it is that they're providing. I'm so sorry.
Ding.
Can't even disguise that one. And they've sort of grouped them by service, by safety and security, in-car, autonomy, onboard sensors, and companies who are delivering each of these things. And as well as sort of looking at specialty vehicles and all that kind of stuff. And then within those, they've got other subcategories. So it is a little bit moves from sort of services and then safety and security, supporting that right the way down to the actual hardware of the people making the sensors at the bottom. And as I say, on the verticals, they've kind of tried to group them within those rows. It's on Wired. There'll be a link in the show notes. It's worth a little while of your time just to take a bit of a look and just see how many of these, how many organizations that there are involved in doing this.
Well, it's actually the first map of all the aspects that come into making a connected car or autonomous vehicle.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, which, I bleated out on Twitter last week, has anyone written a sensible article that breaks it down simply to anyone yet? And I've failed to find anything, but this is the first one that sort of shows you all the many, many aspects that have to be considered and have to be worked on to go into an autonomous vehicle, but also cross over a lot into connected cars. If
I can kick myself over and into work mode for a second or two, then what it actually gives us, never mind the logos, never mind the implementation, the people doing the implementation, what it gives us is a capability map of what you need to be able to do or able to provide in one way, shape, or form in order to put together one or more autonomous vehicles, because you're going to need all these things to work together. We'll start off basically the different. I've got the level 0 to 5 of autonomy, which is essentially a capability maturity. Sorry,
that's that 0 to 5 though. Let's.
It's a capability maturity.
It's just somebody's thrown something down. That's not. It's like when people mention that, it's a bit like the rules of robotics or whatever it is, the Asimov thing that people are tending to quote a lot. That there isn't anything else out there, so people are using that as the thing. But it's not been defined tightly enough yet.
You're partly true, but I've also seen it used in presentations at conferences that weren't about autonomy or autonomous vehicles or vehicles at all, that were actually about tech and capability maturity modeling, because that's the kind of sad act I am, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. But so it is it's not a great capability maturity model, but it's there and it's being used, and that's the best starting point we can have. So what I like about this future transportation stack from that's been shown on Wired here is that it gives the individual all the different capabilities which need to be orchestrated together. Now we start off, of course, when we're learning in this stuff, or when we've got adaptive cruise control, or even where we've just got sat nav. Okay, even when we've just got navigation service that we're using. That's the most basic. That's you or me using Waze on our phone as navigation, and that's that basic level, right the way up to adding more and more and more capabilities on, which hopefully eventually will give connected autonomous vehicles at some point in the future. Eventually, that's where I'm going with that. But I love it for that, because it's quite cool, because it does put into perspective all the different.
Well, I think it puts it into perspective. I think you're quite right there. Puts into perspective the hysteria that anytime now we're all going to have autonomous vehicles and life will be solved. No, we're not. This is way more complicated than people appreciate. That the mainstream press can't get its head round, as on many items. Mm-hmm. But it just goes to show how really complicated and therefore incredibly expensive it is to get this stuff to work. To get to the point where you're actually studying it, and studying is not quite right, but you are working on developing your capability in that area is incredibly expensive. So then to be doing it, it's, this isn't happening overnight, and it is going to take, and there's going to be stumbles along the way, and it's going to require it's not going to require just the cars and the technology to improve, but it requires the infrastructure to improve as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on projects in the past about flight, and tried to put in place some of the stuff.
We've got planes, don't you?
Planes.
Yes. Well, you said you were working on flight. I was hoping they did.
Yeah. But it was
team did realize you've got planes.
I was trying not to say planes, you see, because it included helicopters and drones and all sorts of stuff. But which just, I mean, that continues to be a massive project that's ongoing. And that's in the air, and that actually is much, much easier than cars.
Yeah.
That's been going for years, and that's European funded, etc., etc., etc. Big time, working on some of the challenges of this, which in turn will feed into this. But yeah, it's a big thing, and I just love this map actually.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. I'm glad you found it.
Good.
Threw it my way.
So it's worth a little bit of a look. But what it isn't, because there are 263 companies involved in it, we decided that would be a bit much, is this week's list of the week.
No. And in a buck to the trend, Mr. Braithwaite Smith has not provided this one.
Yeah, slacker.
He's not provided this one. This one, when you click the link, is provided by Car Magazine, and is mainly for listeners in the UK, and it's the most lucrative speed cameras and what roads they're on in Britain. So it's a happy one, but there's only they've listed the top 5, and oh wow, number 1 is the A1 at Great Ponton, Lincolnshire, going northbound, which has raised
in a year
£606,400.
It's quite a bad spot, that.
Yeah. Is that camera hidden? Or
no,
it's just going, I need to go.
It's quite obvious, but there is a change of speed limit not far before it.
Okay.
But what happens is it's needed because there's traffic lights just up ahead, so people do need to be slowing down. Right. So it is there as a deterrent. I think it's very difficult to argue that is a ridiculously placed one. It does make a lot of sense from a road safety point of view. Sorry, I know that's not what we're meant to say. So next up is one on the M180 west of the River Trent, near Scunthorpe, which brought in £583,500. After that, we start to move south, and the next actually 3 and 4 are on the M25. First one, junction 17 to 18 at Rickmansworth, £538,500. Number 4, on the M25. These ones must be in the adaptive speed limit areas, which explains why they probably come through more often. But it was between Junction 5 and Clackett Lane Services, 373,300, and I can believe it on that stretch of road. And the last one, number 5, is on the A12 southbound at Stratford St Mary, £305,400. I'm not quite sure where that one is. I'm not enough of an expert on that. The actual amounts, the numbers were put together by submitting freedom of information requests to some of the UK's police forces, basically asking how many people caught speeding in the last calendar year, and then assuming that there was an average speeding fine of about £100 in each case. So that's where those numbers came from.
But the problem, you look at those, and the problem you have is it makes it, although they're in obviously in that number one, definitely because you know where it is. They're in good places for safety reasons. The amount of money that's been brought in just reinforces the perception that they are cash milking machines.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know about 1, 3, and 4, and as I was saying, whilst you left us for a second, I was the ones on the M25. They're variable speed limit areas. So those are ones. Those are ones where the speed limit is changing. Yeah. So that doesn't help there. But some people just they are kind of there for a reason. In those ones, it makes sense, and I have seen them. I've seen at least one of those ones go when people have been wheeking through well above the speed limit, the posted speed limits. So there we go.
Right. Last thing, another one you found actually.
I seem to have been trawling the internet. Actually, I didn't find it. This one was presented to me. So thanks to Lewis Kingston and Carlton Boyce for tweeting this one earlier on today. And it's not in any of the usual source journals that we go to. It's actually on Petapixel, which is a photography blog. And it's an article, and there are photos about a chap called Joshua Paul, who is a photojournalist for Lollipop magazine. And instead of using, the latest and greatest Canon or Sony or whatever, he uses a 1913 Graflex 4-inch by 5-inch camera. So one of these old ones, which is essentially a wooden box with a lens on the front and a sort of big thing that you look down so that you can see. And he captures these fantastic black and white images, which they're not the sharpest ever. And there's some really cool lens distortion stuff, but that's because of what it does. And they are such beautiful photos. And what you've got to remember is that whilst many of these guys with the new stuff can rattle off 20 frames a second, he can take 20 frames in an entire day in one session. That's as much as he can manage, just because of the plates that he has to use and everything. So they are these beautifully set up photographs. It's well worth a click on the link.
They are stunning. They are stunning.
They're just gorgeous.
He seems to be one of those photographers that is capturing not just the cars, but he's capturing the light, what it's like to be there, and you get a real feel for in some of his photos. That he's capturing it's almost like you're getting the smell of it and the sound of it as well in these photos. He's one of these really immersive type styles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally different, as it points out in there. Totally different from the kind of normal stock photography.
It's looking at the people as well, which is interesting. Yeah. It's always interesting to see.
It's absolutely beautiful. Please go look. Yeah, Carlton, thanks for sharing that on Twitter, because I saw that and thought, right, that's the and finally for this week. I don't care what Andrew says, and then you agreed with me, so that's a relief.
Yes.
But yeah, cracking stuff. Really, really good. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
and that takes us to the end of the show.
Brief one.
It was a brief one. Despite my waffling, it was still a brief one. But don't forget, folks, that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget about our Patreon, motoringpodcast.com. motoringpodcast.com, and then click on the button. He's distracting me and putting me off, everyone. On there, click on the red button for that, and also leaving ratings and reviews on iTunes or whichever podcast platform you use. If you're having trouble with any of those, please get in touch to @motoring_podcast on Twitter to find out how to subscribe, because we're always happy to help and to show people. In the meantime, to get in touch with Andrew, what's the best way, sir?
Best way is the one that you've just mentioned there, which would be Twitter. If you search for Cracked Windscreen, you will find me there. And Alan, if people want to drop you a note of other interesting articles like that last one that we were discussing, what is probably the quickest and the best way in which to do that?
Yeah, we love stuff like that. And once again, Twitter is the best way. So @AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY. That would be just fantastic. We're going to be back next week. There will be a new review out on Friday.
Correct.
Is it an awesome person this week?
I only have awesome people on.
You do only have awesome people
so
on.
far, I have, and the people I've chatted to already, which are in the pipeline, tease, #tease, have all been awesome. So I think the people are what makes review the betterer of shows out there.
Right, I think that's enough of that. So as you say, we will be back with this equivalent show next week. Until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clews.
And safe motoring.